Turning back from the global arena to the regional aspect of the economic and financial crisis, as we see it from the regional cooperation councils that I represent, sort of bird's eye view of the present situation in the region. But let me start also by saying two sentences about the Regional Cooperation Council as it operates in the region for a little bit over 2 years now. We are 12 member organizations, a unique organization, a unique forum of cooperation that never existed in this corner of Europe in the modern history. 12 members, sizable portion of Europe, more than 120 million people market, with huge natural and human assets and resources and potentials that needs to be put to proper use. And I think regional cooperation is the only impetus and stimulus to use these potentials. Now, a flashpoint on how we see from the RCC the period over the last 2 years, the crisis period that the region has gone through or is going through. First, I dare say that this is the hardest hit region of Europe in terms of the effects of the economic and financial crisis. 2 years ago, this region was the most dynamic emerging market in Europe and in the world. We had growth rates on average between 6 and 8% throughout southeastern Europe. Now, this shock affected with the obvious slowdown in the economy, and the slowdown in the economies uncovered also a huge structural weaknesses in our economies, not only in the transition and post-transition countries, but also within the EU member countries from the region. So we had a slowdown instead of growth, recession instead of development over the last 2 periods. That is, I also dare say, unprecedented post-war recovery environment in modern European history. On top, a recession spread through the region against the backdrop of unresolved political issues or unfinished peace. That will call for great concerns. But then, on the other side, I'll pinpoint 2, I dare say, positive trends. Even at the time, during the times of the crisis, the countries of the region, the EU aspiring countries of the region, continued with their reforms. Positive paradox in itself. It is evident, it was witnessed, and it was evident in the Commission's report on the status of negotiations or status of relations with the EU over the last period. It is more than evident with Croatia's advancing its negotiations, and it's evident in the upgrading of the institutional relations between the aspiring countries and the EU. Paradox number 2. In the time of economic and social crisis, and in this particular very complex corner of Europe, one would expect the renationalization of the national political agendas, worsening of the bilateral relations, but to the contrary, and this summit also is a testification to that, the bilateral relations and the overall regional cooperation spirit in the southeastern Europe is upgrading, and it's on the very, very strong move. I'm citing these 2 positive, I'd say, paradoxes, as they testify that the political leaders in the region have recognized, I would say, the call of the moment, and recognize that everything needs to be done to avoid the region from slipping away down the international agenda, and in terms of development in particular. That also testifies to the political, economic, and social vitality of the region. Now, where we stand at this point, from my point of view at least, we have a positive trend, we have unfinished businesses, we have some very serious open issues, and I think what the region needs to do, and it was evident from yesterday's addresses by the Prime Ministers, this recognition that the region needs to, first on the political aspect, develop political tools to sustain the trend and make this positive political trend a historically irreversible one. To identify not only the governmental levels to sustain the process, but also to see what is the role for the parliamentarians in this aspect, what is the role of the civil society, media, business community, and so forth. On the other side, it needs to sustain the trend by developing I will introduce this syntagma, regional recovery and development strategy. I think this is what the region needs at this point in time. And the tools we have. We have in the priority areas like energy, infrastructure, and so forth, we have the Energy Community Treaty, unique region in Europe with this kind of treaty. We need to complete as soon as possible, overcoming political differences, the Southeast European Transportation Community Treaty. We need to increase the efficiency of CEFTA, overcoming the political differences or finding creative way to overcome political differences in order so that they do not hamper economic and social development of all those countries, including those who have political differences and who will have to learn to live with their differences for a longer period of time. We need to revive infrastructural and transportation corridors. We need to revive the inland waterway corridors. We need to work together in reconstruction of the railway system in the region, which is really not at the level of 21st century. By way of illustrating, before the wars, we need to go from Zagreb to Belgrade by train in 3.5 hours. It takes more than 7 hours now. And if we know that in a very short period of time, Europe will be connected with the Central Asian and Asian markets through the undersea tunnels in Bosporus, then the region has the potentials to develop and include itself in this strategic route. We need to ensure that the single European sky is implemented in our region also. Otherwise, the huge potentials in the aviation sector of Southeastern Europe, which possesses, believe me, 26% of airfields of Europe. 26% of airfields in Europe are located in Southeastern Europe. Unfortunately, over the last 20 years, the aviation sector in Southeast Europe barely communicated, not cooperated. We need to put to the better use the huge ports, assets of the ports in Southeastern Europe. 12 major ports in Southeast in Europe are located in Southeastern Europe. But I dare say that more than anything, Southeastern Europe at this point in time, in the need of a great leap forward, needs to develop a huge, large-scale, trans-regional development projects in energy, infrastructure, and transportation sector. The region is in need for brave, new, out-of-the-box thinking, out of the national border thinking in order to improve the situation of each and every national economy, to develop regional industrial clusters, to develop regional labor mobility, to think about cross-border industrial zones and so forth. So I think in the sum, to summarize the picture of the region and the needs of the region at this point in time, we need genuine engagement of the governments in the region in the economic and social development cooperation. True and genuine engagement of the governmental sector. Translate the political openness into concrete cooperation in the economic development sector. And of course, the other side of the coin is addressing the open issues on the as urgently as possible in order to provide fuel to the enlargement policy of Brussels and in order to make sure that the European investment will continue to be interested in our region. As of course we all know that the investment in the development is the best investment in the stability. Thank you.